PDD. This is the most important and common phrase in the intelligent automation and robotic process automation space. If you work in an automation team, if you're involved in an automation project, or you're going up for an automation interview, this is by far the most important acronym you need to know. So if you understand what a process definition document is and how to use it and how to create one, you'll be able to get anything automated that's suitable. And if you know the do's and the don'ts and can help your team avoid common mistakes, you'll be an automation superhero that your team will turn to. So in this video, we're going to take a look at what the PDD is and why it's so important. We'll take a look at how to use it, how to build one from scratch, and the do's and the don'ts. I'm Tony, and this is Intelligent Automation Simplified. So if you're an analyst, a project manager, a business leader, or just someone in the office who's interested in getting involved in automation, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you're alerted every time I release new videos. So what is a PDD? A process definition document. What is it and why is it so important? So the PDD is what translates a business's problem to a technical solution. It's the business analyst or the automation analyst's single most important tool. It helps them to liaise between the business and the development teams, two very different teams, to find a common way of communicating and translating that message across. By defining the process, all the details and the bits of that process on a PDD, it allows the process to be defined in a clear and unambiguous way. Once a PDD has been signed off, the business analyst will use this to capture the solution that they have designed with the business into the document and capture the minute details of exactly what that automated process will do. Also, the business analyst can use that to converse with the developer just to make sure that the developer has everything that they need to build the right solution. So when the business has signed off that process, that solution, the developer is happy that they have everything they need, all the acceptance criteria, so that they can confidently build the automated process that's been defined in the PDD, and the business should be happy. The developer actually uses the PDD to create what's called the solution design document, which is a more technical document showing the architecture of the solution. Again, it's clear, it's unambiguous, and once signed off, it minimizes any misunderstandings, and it covers the business analyst and it covers the automation team when things change later down the road. But to create the PDD, it does require significant commitment up front from the subject matter experts to understand what the as-is process is, to understand the problem statement and what they're trying to achieve, to design the solution, the to-be solution, to understand what the use cases are, to understand what the user stories are, what the business wants the robot to do, and what the business wants to be able to achieve from automating this process, and the acceptance criteria around each user story as test cases, so that the business can tick off that the robot has achieved everything that they wanted it to. So with that PDD, the developer should have everything that they need to build And effectively, using that PDD, the developer and the business analyst themselves should become process experts. And having this documentation is very useful for in the future when any changes need to be made or any enhancements to the process. That process definition document can be pulled out, can be updated, and then once signed off, the developer then knows what to do to build the enhancements. So we talked about how the PDD is used by the business analyst and the developer. It's also used as a checkpoint in a governance process. The PDD would need to be signed off from all the different parties. The developer needs to sign it off that they're happy that it has everything that they need. The business subject matter expert, the process expert, needs to sign off that it has captured what they wanted it to capture. And the budget holder, probably the director or the team manager, needs to sign it off saying that they're happy for that process to be built. They understand the time frame and the cost and the maintenance requirements for that automation, and they sign that off too. So it's a very key checkpoint, because if that PDD isn't signed off, then you can go no further. But once it is signed off, the automation team is covered for anything that may come back later on where there's changes that are requested. If there's enhancements, it confirms the scope for the developer to build. So if the team then comes back and says they want to make a change, then they would have to raise a change request. So the PDD is a documentation on what was agreed by all parties, just in case there's any disagreements later down the line. Guys, if you're getting value from this up to now, just make sure you click that like button. That will really help me understand that you're getting value and to create more videos like this. And if there's anything that stands out in this video whilst you're watching, make sure you write that in the comment section. We understand the importance of a PDD and we understand how to use it, but now let's take a look at how to build one from scratch. If you can do this and you go into a new automation team, if you can build a PDD from scratch, you're going to be of great value to any new automation team that you go into. So firstly, a major part of the PDD is the business impact. It helps the developer to understand the context of why this automation is in place. And it also helps both the business analyst and the business team to agree on the purpose of this automation and what it's trying to solve. This would also inform the budget holder why they're signing off this automation to be developed. So you want to talk about the problem statement, the estimated savings and benefits this is going to deliver, and also the business impact as well. Because you're making a change, it may impact different teams, so you need to highlight this as well, but we'll get into that in later down the line. You want to include risks, assumptions, issues, and dependencies. This will help you to work with the business and the developer team to highlight any risks that may come as a result of this automation, but also risks of some things that may happen if this wasn't automated. Also, there's going to be some assumptions. Not everything is going to be clear cut, so you want to make sure that you've thought about and you've highlighted any assumptions so that when this PDD does get signed off, the approvers and the budget holders and the senior stakeholders are happy to take on that risk and that they're aware of the assumptions that you've highlighted. Also, there may be some issues that may impact this project, that there may be issues that may impact this project that need to be worked on, and of course there are going to be dependencies as well. For example, the process could change in the future, or the application could get updated, which would result in a need for updating this application. There may be issues with getting access for the robot and the developer to these applications. There may be a time frame. There may be issues with getting access to the system and getting the credentials for the robot, or maybe there's some API access issues that you need to overcome. There are also dependencies. For example, having this automation rolled out successfully is dependent on having stakeholders that are available in the right time for the right amount of time to help test the process and make sure that it's actually working effectively in the user acceptance testing stage. So after you've highlighted the business impacts, you've looked at the risks, assumptions, issues and dependencies, you want to also highlight who are the stakeholders, who will be involved in this process to assist the delivery of this process, and who do you require getting sign off from. You also want to include process maps. Firstly, the as-is process map, what the process used to look like or what it currently looks like, and then the to-be process map, what the new process design looks like with the automation included. You want to include keystroke documentation, and this may be a separate document or you may include it in this PDD document. But what this is literally the keystrokes and clicks that the automation will do, or if you're using APIs, where the data is coming from. You want to include the data formats, the location of the data, for example, the API attributes or the location of the input files. And you also want to include the triggers or the schedules. How does this automated process start? Is it triggered by an action by a user, or is this a schedule at a specific time? And also remember, if you have an international company, you want to make sure you specify which time zone you're referring to. And finally, you want to make sure at a minimum that you're including the notifications for when the robot is finished and the alerts for when something goes wrong, and the exceptions, the different types of ways that something could go wrong in the process. So you want to make sure you have at a minimum notifications, alerts and exceptions. And this is how the robot informs the business users or process owners when it starts, when it finishes, when it comes up against an error or an issue, and also the different types of exceptions. For example, if data came in incorrectly, or it didn't have access, or it couldn't log into the application, or the password needs to be reset. All these different exceptions that are both known and unknown. I just want to leave you with a few do's and don'ts when it comes to creating your PDD. So firstly, don't assume. So you may be tempted to just take the subject matter expert's word, the process expert. You may just want to take their word on how a process is done, but it's imperative that you actually see the process. You actually walk through the process with real life examples. You don't want the subject matter expert to give you theoretical examples. You want real life examples of walking through a real life situation, so you see it with your own eyes how the process is done. And you want to make sure that you're speaking to the right person. You're speaking to the subject matter expert, the person who does this process on a daily basis, not the manager or some senior stakeholder that thinks that they know how the process is done. Also, you want to make sure that you get all the right parties to sign off that process. You need to have the budget holder sign off. The process owner who does the process needs to sign off to say that yes, this is how the process is done. You want the developer to sign off that this is technically achievable. So you want all the right parties to sign off that PDD. You want to make sure that the developer doesn't just take the PDD at face value and start building. You want to make sure that they have everything that they need, that they've gone through the PDD, they've given you feedback, because they inevitably they're thinking from a developer mindset, and they inevitably will find things that the business analyst has missed. The other thing is to make sure you don't skip steps. On your PDD, there should be a minimum requirement for what is on that process document. You need to have the as-is process to confirm what the current process is, and then obviously the to-be process to make sure that you've understood what you're developing. You want to make sure that you have SLAs, service level agreements, so that you can ensure that the process finishes on time, because maybe there's a deadline, and this is going to impact how that bot is built and how it's orchestrated and when that bot should be run. You need to make sure that you've taken care of the access levels, especially at the PDD creation phase. You don't want to wait until the developer starts building to then start getting access levels for the robot and the developer to access the system, because it does take a little bit of time to get access levels to applications. So you want to do this as early as possible, and the PDD is the right place, is the earliest time that you can start putting that into motion. Make sure you don't miss out highlighting the risks, assumptions, issues and dependencies, because long after the PDD has been built, the robot has been launched, there may be risks that you should have highlighted and should have had a plan of how to mitigate them, or potentially there was dependencies that if you didn't highlight them could have slowed down or even blocked the rollout of that solution. So you want to make sure that you can look back to something and say that yes, we thought about that, it's in the PDD, or if something goes wrong, you can refer back to that PDD. So guys, just to wrap up, I hope you really understand the importance of the PDD and that this is a central tool. And if nothing else, you have this PDD in place. There are teams that only have PDDs. So you should be using this document in your automation team as a bare minimum, because it gives you clarity, it gives you agreement, and it gives you alignment of all the stakeholders involved in your automation project. So guys, was there any points that I've mentioned that aren't in your PDD? Or maybe you've got extra things that you think are necessary in the PDD that I missed out? Make sure you leave your points in the comment section. I'll be really happy to hear from you, to learn from you, and I'm sure other watchers would want to hear from you too. Okay guys, well I'll see you in the next video. You take care.